Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of his ship watching the darkness of space through the big window in front of him. The stars looked peaceful, but Jake knew that peace would not last much longer. His hands moved across the control panel as he checked the ship systems one more time. Everything was working fine, but that did not make him feel better about what was coming. The communication system made a loud beeping sound, and Jake pressed the button to answer it. The face of Admiral Lisa Carter appeared on the screen, and she looked worried. Her gray hair was pulled back tight, and her blue eyes showed the stress she was feeling. Lisa had been leading Earth's space forces for 10 years, and Jake had never seen her look this scared before. Lisa spoke in a clear voice that did not show how worried she really was. The alien fleet had been detected 3 days ago at the edge of the solar system, and they were moving toward Earth. The ships were huge, and there were 300 of them. Each alien ship was 5 times bigger than the largest human ship, and their weapons were far more powerful than anything Earth had ever built. Jake listened as Lisa explained what the aliens wanted. They called themselves the Korthak Empire, and they had sent a message to Earth. The message was simple and terrifying. Earth had 72 hours to surrender completely, or every human on the planet would be killed. There would be no second chances and no negotiations. The Korthak had done this to 17 other worlds, and each time the result was the same: total surrender or total destruction. The alien ships moved closer to Earth with each passing hour. Long-range scanners showed that the Korthak fleet was arranged in a perfect attack formation. Their ships had energy shields that glowed with a bright blue light, and weapons that could destroy entire cities with one shot. Human technology looked like stone tools compared to what the aliens had brought to Earth. Captain Amy Rodriguez was in the command center deep under the ground in Colorado. She was looking at computer screens that showed the alien fleet getting closer. Amy had spent her whole life preparing for the day when Earth would meet other life in space. She had always hoped that first contact would be peaceful, but the Korthak had made it clear that peace was not what they wanted. Amy turned to look at the other officers in the room. General Chris Martinez was studying the tactical displays and shaking his head. The numbers were terrible. Earth had 47 ships that could fight in space, and most of them were small patrol vessels. The aliens had 300 massive warships with technology that was hundreds of years ahead of human science. Dr. Helen Foster was working in her laboratory, trying to find some weakness in the alien technology. She had been studying the energy patterns from the Korthak ships for 2 days without sleep. Helen knew that there had to be something that could help Earth fight back, but she had not found it yet. The alien technology seemed perfect in every way. Lieutenant Ben Hayes was on his ship preparing for what everyone knew would be a hopeless battle. Ben was young, but he was one of the best pilots in the Earth fleet. He had trained for years to defend his home planet, but nothing had prepared him for fighting an enemy this powerful. Ben checked his weapon systems, knowing that his small ship would probably not survive the first few minutes of combat. The governments of Earth met in emergency sessions around the world. Some leaders wanted to surrender immediately. They said that living under alien rule was better than dying in a war that could not be won. Other leaders said that humans should fight no matter what the cost. The debate went on for hours while the alien deadline grew closer. General Martinez stood up in the war room and spoke to everyone there. He said that Earth had never given up when faced with impossible odds before, and they should not start now. Martinez knew that the battle would be terrible, but he also knew that some things were worth fighting for even when victory seemed impossible. Jake Sullivan received new orders from Admiral Carter. His ship, along with 11 others, would form the first line of defense. They would meet the alien fleet at the edge of the solar system and try to slow them down. Everyone knew it was a suicide mission, but Jake accepted the orders without complaint. He had sworn to protect Earth, and he would keep that promise even if it cost him his life. Amy Rodriguez watched the countdown timer on her computer screen. 18 hours remained before the alien deadline. Earth's leaders still had not made a final decision about surrender, but Amy was already preparing for war. She knew that humans would fight because that was what humans did when they were cornered. The species that had survived ice ages and world wars would not give up without a battle. Dr. Foster made a small discovery in her laboratory. The alien ships produced a strange type of energy that seemed to interact with human brainwaves in an unusual way. Helen did not understand what this meant yet, but she knew it might be important. She continued her research, hoping to find something that could help save her world. The alien fleet continued its steady approach toward Earth. Their massive ships moved through space like dark metal mountains covered in weapons and shields. The Korthak had conquered many worlds, and they expected Earth to surrender just like all the others. They had no idea that humans were different from every other species they had ever encountered. Time was running out, and Earth had to make a choice that would determine the future of the human race. The 72-hour deadline passed, and Earth did not surrender. Admiral Lisa Carter had made the decision that would change everything. She sent a message to the Korthak fleet that was short and simple. Earth would fight, and every human would die before they would bow to alien masters. The message was broadcast on all frequencies so the entire galaxy could hear humanity's answer to the ultimatum. Captain Amy Rodriguez gave the order that launched Earth's entire space fleet into battle. 47 ships of different sizes and types lifted off from bases around the solar system. The ships were small compared to the alien vessels, but each one carried human crews who were ready to fight against impossible odds. The Earth fleet formed up in attack formations that had been planned for years, but never tested in real combat. Jake Sullivan led the first wave of 12 ships toward the approaching alien fleet. His ship was called the Defiance, and it was one of the newer vessels in Earth's Navy. Jake could see the massive Korthak ships on his display screen, and they looked like metal cities floating in space. Each alien ship was armed with weapons that could destroy his entire squadron with one shot, but Jake pressed forward anyway. The first battle began when Jake's ships encountered the forward scouts of the alien fleet. The Korthak expected the human ships to be destroyed in seconds, but something strange happened instead. The human pilots used tactics that the aliens had never seen before. Jake's ships moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually carefully planned to confuse the alien targeting systems. Lieutenant Ben Hayes was piloting his small fighter craft in the middle of the battle. Ben's ship was barely larger than an old airplane, but he flew it like a master. The alien ships tried to target him with their massive weapons, but Ben moved too fast and too unpredictably for their systems to lock on. He darted between the huge alien vessels like a tiny bird flying around sleeping giants. Dr. Helen Foster was still working in her underground laboratory when the battle began. She had been studying the strange energy patterns from the alien ships for 3 days, and finally made a breakthrough. Helen discovered that human brainwaves produced a unique electromagnetic frequency that seemed to interfere with Korthak technology. The effect was very small, but it was real, and it might be the key to victory. General Chris Martinez was coordinating Earth's ground defenses from his command post. Every city on Earth had been turned into a fortress with weapons and shields. Millions of civilians had volunteered to fight even though they knew they might die. Martinez had never seen anything like the human response to the invasion threat. People who had been enemies before were now working together to save their world. The alien fleet commander was called Warlord Vexthon, and he was becoming angry and frustrated. The human resistance was much stronger than expected, and his ships were taking damage they should never have received. Vexthon had conquered 17 worlds without serious opposition, but Earth was different. These humans fought with a desperation and creativity that surprised him. Amy Rodriguez received the first reports from Dr. Foster about the electromagnetic interference effect. Amy immediately understood what this discovery could mean for the battle. If they could find a way to amplify the human brainwave frequency, they might have a weapon that could even the odds against the alien fleet. Amy sent urgent messages to all Earth ships telling them about the discovery. Jake Sullivan's squadron had lost 3 ships in the first hour of fighting, but they had also damaged 2 alien vessels. This was far better than anyone had expected from the first engagement. Jake realized that the aliens were having trouble with their targeting systems, and their movements seemed less coordinated than before. Something was affecting their technology, but Jake did not know what it was. Ben Hayes shot down his first alien fighter and felt a surge of hope. The alien ship had been much larger and more advanced than his own, but somehow his weapons had penetrated its shields. Ben did not understand why, but he was grateful for any advantage he could get. He immediately turned his ship toward another alien target and prepared to attack again. Dr. Foster worked frantically to understand how the electromagnetic interference was affecting alien technology. She discovered that the more humans concentrated on fighting the aliens, the stronger the interference became. It was as if human determination and will to survive was being converted into a weapon that could damage alien systems. Helen had never seen anything like it in all her years of scientific research. The battle spread across the entire solar system as more alien ships arrived and more human vessels joined the fight. Earth's orbital defense platforms opened fire with every weapon they had. The space around Earth lit up with explosions and energy beams as the two fleets hammered at each other. The aliens still had superior numbers and technology, but the humans were proving much harder to defeat than expected. General Martinez received reports that some alien landing craft had been destroyed before they could reach Earth. The ground-based defense system seemed to be working better than planned, and alien troops were being stopped at the outer atmosphere. Martinez could hardly believe what he was hearing. Earth was not just surviving the alien attack, but was actually fighting back successfully. Warlord Vex then found that many of his ship systems were experiencing unexplained failures. Communications between alien vessels became difficult, and weapons accuracy dropped significantly. Vexthon had never experienced anything like this in all his years of conquest. His technology was supposed to be superior to anything these primitive humans possessed, but somehow his advantage was disappearing. Amy Rodriguez made the decision to launch a full counterattack against the alien fleet. All remaining Earth ships were ordered to advance and engage the enemy at close range. It was a desperate gamble, but Amy believed that the electromagnetic interference effect would give human forces the edge they needed to win. She broadcast her attack order to every human ship in the solar system and prepared for the most important battle in human history. Dr. Helen Foster had worked for 36 hours straight and finally created the first neural interference device. The machine was small enough to fit inside a human spacecraft, and it could amplify the electromagnetic effect that human brains naturally produced. Helen tested the device and found that it increased the interference by a factor of 10. She immediately sent the plans to every Earth ship and defense station in the solar system. Jake Sullivan received the neural interference plans, and his engineering team installed the device on his ship in less than 2 hours. The moment they activated it, the effect was amazing. Alien ships that had been firing accurately just minutes before suddenly began missing their targets. Their energy shields started flickering and their formation flying became sloppy and uncoordinated. Jake could hardly believe what he was seeing. Captain Amy Rodriguez watched from her command center as the tide of battle began to turn in humanity's favor. Earth ships that had been desperately fighting for survival were now pressing forward against the alien fleet. The neural interference devices were being installed on every human vessel, and each new installation made the effect stronger. The aliens were losing their technological advantage with each passing minute. Lieutenant Ben Hayes found that his small fighter could now penetrate alien shields that had been impossible to damage before. The enemy ships seemed confused, and their weapons were firing at empty space instead of at his craft. Ben realized that the aliens depended completely on their advanced technology, and when that technology failed, they became helpless. He pressed his attack and destroyed 3 more alien fighters in quick succession. Warlord Vexton was experiencing something no Korthak commander had ever faced before. His fleet was not just being defeated, but was being systematically destroyed by an enemy that should have been crushed in the first hour of combat. Half of his ships were reporting major system failures, and the other half were under heavy attack by human forces that seemed to grow stronger every minute. General Chris Martinez received reports from all over Earth that the alien ground assault had completely failed. Landing craft that had managed to penetrate the atmosphere were crashing because their navigation systems had stopped working. Alien troops who reached the ground found that their weapons and communication equipment were malfunctioning. Human ground forces were capturing alien soldiers who seemed lost and confused without their technology. Dr. Foster made another important discovery while studying the neural interference effect. She found that humans working together in groups could amplify the phenomenon exponentially. When ship crews focused their minds on fighting the aliens, the interference became much stronger. Foster realized that human consciousness itself was becoming a weapon against the invaders. Amy Rodriguez coordinated the final phase of the counterattack. Every available Earth ship moved toward the alien fleet in a coordinated assault. The neural interference was now so strong that many alien vessels were completely dead in space. Their crews were trapped inside ships that no longer responded to commands and had no power for life support systems. The hunter had become the hunted. Jake Sullivan led his squadron directly at the alien command ship. The massive vessel was 10 times larger than his own ship, but its weapons were no longer functioning properly. Jake could see explosions on the alien ship's hull as its own systems began to fail and overload. The pride of the Korthak fleet was being destroyed by technology it could not understand or counter. Ben Hayes flew his fighter into the hangar bay of a disabled alien cruiser. He was amazed to find that the alien crew was not the terrifying monsters he had expected. They looked scared and confused as their advanced ship fell apart around them. Without their technology, the aliens were just ordinary beings who had relied too heavily on machines to do their fighting for them. The neural interference effect continued to spread and strengthen as more human ships joined the battle. Alien vessels that had been at the edge of the solar system found that their faster-than-light drives had stopped working. They were trapped in the same system where they had come to destroy humanity. The Korthak fleet was now completely cut off from their empire with no way to call for help or retreat to safety. General Martinez made the decision to capture as many alien ships and prisoners as possible. The technology on board the enemy vessels would help Earth build better defenses, and the alien prisoners could provide information about the Korthak Empire. Martinez wanted to make sure that humanity learned everything they could from this first contact with hostile aliens. Dr. Foster worked with engineering teams to install neural interference generators on captured alien ships. She discovered that the effect was permanent and could not be reversed. Any Korthak technology that had been exposed to human neural patterns would never work properly again. This meant that even if some aliens escaped, they would not be able to use their ships effectively. Warlord Vexthon watched his proud fleet being destroyed piece by the primitive humans he had come to conquer. His own flagship was now powerless and drifting in space. The life support systems were failing and his crew was slowly suffocating. Vexthon had to make a choice that no Korthak commander had ever been forced to make. He would have to surrender to an inferior species or watch his people die. Amy Rodriguez received the surrender signal from the alien command ship and could barely believe it was real. The Korthak Empire that had terrorized 17 star systems was surrendering to Earth. The fleet that had come to destroy humanity was now completely defeated and helpless. Amy knew that this victory would change everything for the human race and for the galaxy. Jake Sullivan docked his ship with the alien flagship and prepared to accept the formal surrender of Warlord Vexthon. As he walked through the corridors of the huge alien vessel, Jake realized that humanity had just announced its presence to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Earth was no longer a helpless target, but had become a force that other civilizations would have to respect and fear. Jake Sullivan walked through the corridors of the alien flagship with a team of human Marines behind him. The ship was enormous and filled with technology that looked like magic compared to anything Earth had built. But all of that advanced technology was now useless because of the neural interference effect that human brains produced. Lights flickered randomly, and computer screens showed only static and error messages. Warlord Vexthon was waiting in what had been his command center but was now just a dark room filled with broken machines. The alien leader was tall and covered with gray scales that looked like armor. His eyes were large and yellow, and they showed the defeat and shame he felt. Vexthon had never surrendered to anyone before, and doing so to a primitive species made his humiliation complete. Captain Amy Rodriguez coordinated the capture and boarding of every alien ship in the solar system. Human Marines were taking control of vessels that had seemed invincible just hours before. The aliens offered no resistance because their weapons would not function, and their security systems had failed. Earth forces found thousands of alien prisoners who seemed lost without their technology to guide them. Lieutenant Ben Hayes led a team that was exploring the alien database systems. Most of the computers were not working, but some basic information could still be accessed. Ben discovered that the Korthak Empire controlled dozens of star systems and had enslaved billions of beings. The Empire was built on the idea that advanced technology made them superior to all other forms of life. Dr. Helen Foster was studying captured alien technology and making discoveries that would change human science forever. The aliens had mastered forms of energy that Earth scientists had only theorized about. But Foster also found that all of this technology had a fatal weakness. It required a type of quantum coherence that human neural patterns could disrupt just by being near it. General Chris Martinez was coordinating the cleanup operations around Earth. Wreckage from destroyed alien ships was being collected and studied. The remains of the Korthak fleet would provide Earth with technology and materials that would advance human civilization by centuries. Martinez could hardly believe that what had started as humanity's darkest hour had become its greatest triumph. Admiral Lisa Carter had been promoted to head of all Earth space operations after the victory. She was planning the next phase of human expansion into space using captured alien technology. Lisa knew that Earth could no longer pretend to be alone in the galaxy. Other alien civilizations would eventually learn what had happened to the Korthak fleet, and humanity needed to be ready for whatever came next. The captured alien prisoners were being held in facilities around the world where they could be questioned and studied. Most of the aliens seemed confused and frightened without their technology. They had never learned to think for themselves because their machines had always done their thinking for them. Human interrogators found that the aliens were actually quite weak and dependent once separated from their advanced systems. Vexton was being questioned by human intelligence officers who wanted to learn everything about the Korthak Empire. The alien warlord was cooperating because he knew his life depended on being useful to his captors. Vexton explained that his empire had been built by conquering weaker civilizations and stealing their resources. The Korthak had never encountered a species that could fight back effectively. Ben Hayes made an important discovery while studying alien star charts. The Korthak Empire had many enemies who had been forced into slavery or hiding. If Earth could contact these oppressed civilizations, they might be able to form an alliance against their common enemy. Ben realized that humanity might not just survive the alien threat, but could actually lead a revolution against the Korthak Empire. Dr. Foster was working on a project to create portable neural interference devices that could be carried by individual soldiers. These weapons would allow human forces to disable alien technology anywhere they encountered it. Foster believed that small teams of humans equipped with these devices could infiltrate and destroy alien bases that had seemed impregnable before. Amy Rodriguez received reports that some Korthak ships had escaped from the battle and were trying to reach the edge of the solar system. However, their faster-than-light drives were not working because of the neural interference effect. The alien ships were trapped and would eventually run out of fuel and life support. Earth forces were hunting down these stragglers one by one. General Martinez was planning the first human military expedition outside the solar system. Using captured alien ships and technology, Earth forces would strike at Korthak bases before the Empire could organize a response to the defeat of their fleet. Martinez wanted to keep the aliens off balance and prevent them from developing countermeasures to human neural interference. Jake Sullivan was given command of the first interstellar task force that would carry the fight to the aliens. His flagship would be Vexathon's former command ship, which had been repaired and modified with human technology. Jake felt the weight of responsibility, knowing that he would be leading humanity into the wider galaxy for the first time as conquerors rather than victims. The news of Earth's victory was being broadcast to every human settlement in the solar system. People who had been preparing to die were now celebrating the greatest military victory in human history. Children who had gone to sleep, expecting to wake up as alien slaves, instead woke up to a world where humanity had become the dominant power in their region of space. Vexton watched through a window as human ships prepared to leave the solar system carrying the war back to his people. He realized that the Korthak Empire had made a terrible mistake by attacking Earth. They had awakened something that would not stop until their entire civilization was destroyed. The humans were not just defending themselves, but were preparing to hunt down and eliminate every trace of Korthak power in the galaxy. 3 months had passed since the Korthak fleet had been destroyed at Earth, and the alien empire was beginning to panic. No word had been received from Warlord Vexthon or any of his 300 ships. The high command of the Korthak Empire sent probe ships to investigate, But these scouts never returned either. Something terrible had happened in the Sol system, but no one knew what it was. Jake Sullivan commanded a human fleet of 50 ships that was moving through Korthak space like a sword cutting through their empire. Half of the ships were captured, alien vessels that had been modified with human technology and neural interference generators. The other half were New Earth ships built using alien science, but designed with human creativity and tactics. This combined fleet was more powerful than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Amy Rodriguez was leading diplomatic missions to worlds that had been conquered by the Korthak Empire. She carried a simple message to the enslaved peoples of dozens of star systems. Earth was offering them freedom and alliance in exchange for helping to destroy their common enemy. Amy found that most alien civilizations were eager to join humanity's cause once they learned what had happened to the mighty Korthak fleet. Dr. Helen Foster had established research stations throughout human-controlled space where she continued to study the neural interference effect. Foster had discovered that human consciousness could affect reality in ways that no other known species could match. This unique ability seemed to be connected to the way human brains had evolved over millions of years of surviving impossible challenges on Earth. Lieutenant Ben Hayes was now a colonel commanding his own squadron of fighter craft. Ben's ships were equipped with the latest neural interference technology and were capable of disabling entire alien fleets without firing a shot. Ben had become a legend among both human and alien forces as the pilot who could destroy any enemy ship just by flying close to it and concentrating on the target. The Korthak homeworld received its first attack from human forces on a quiet morning when most of the population was still sleeping. Jake Sullivan's fleet appeared in orbit without warning because their faster-than-light travel systems were based on human modifications to alien technology. The Planetary Defense Network tried to activate, but all of their weapons and shields failed because of neural interference from the human crews. General Chris Martinez was establishing the first human colony worlds using planets that had been liberated from Korthak control. These new settlements were protected by defense systems that combined the best of human and alien technology. Martinez knew that Earth needed secure bases throughout the galaxy if humanity was going to maintain its new position as a dominant interstellar power. Admiral Lisa Carter was coordinating the largest military operation in human history from her command ship in orbit around the Korthak capital world. Over 200 human vessels had gathered for the final assault on the alien empire. Carter had divided her forces into multiple task groups that would strike simultaneously at every major Korthak military base and government center in the galaxy. Vexthan was being held prisoner on Jake's flagship and was forced to watch as his homeworld was conquered by the humans he had tried to destroy. The former warlord could see Korthak cities surrendering without resistance as their defense systems failed one by one. Vexthan realized that his people had become so dependent on technology that they were helpless when that technology was taken away from them. Amy Rodriguez was accepting the surrender of the Korthak planetary government in the capital city. The alien leaders looked exactly like Vexthan with gray scales and yellow eyes, but they seemed smaller and more frightened than the warlord had been. These civilians had never expected to face conquest themselves, and they were eager to cooperate with their human conquerors to save their lives. Ben Hayes led the assault on the main Korthak military academy, where future alien commanders were trained. The attack was over in minutes, as every weapon and defensive system in the facility stopped working. Thousands of young alien cadets surrendered without a fight when they realized that all of their training was useless against an enemy that could disable their technology just by being present. Dr. Foster was studying the central computer systems of the Korthak Empire and learning secrets that would help humanity expand even further into the galaxy. Foster discovered that the aliens had detailed maps of thousands of star systems and information about dozens of other intelligent species. This knowledge would allow humans to contact potential allies and identify new threats before they became dangerous. The liberation of alien slave worlds was proceeding faster than anyone had expected. Most conquered civilizations welcomed human forces as liberators and were eager to join the growing alliance against the Korthak Empire. Some species offered to share their own technology and knowledge with humanity in exchange for freedom and protection from other potential conquerors. General, Martinez received reports that the last Korthak fleet had been destroyed attempting to defend their outer colonies. The alien empire that had terrorized the galaxy for decades was now completely defeated and broken. Scattered groups of Korthak survivors were fleeing to the edges of known space where they hoped to hide from human retribution. Jake Sullivan stood on the bridge of his ship looking down at the Korthak homeworld that was now under human control. The planet that had been the center of a mighty interstellar empire was now just another world in humanity's growing domain. Jake realized that Earth had not just survived its first contact with alien life, but had emerged as the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. The news of humanity's complete victory over the Korthak Empire was spreading to every corner of known space. Alien civilizations that had never heard of Earth were now learning that a new power had emerged that could not be defeated by conventional means. Some species were already sending diplomatic messages to humanity, hoping to establish peaceful relations with the new galactic superpower. Years later, when historians tried to understand how a single planet had conquered an entire galactic empire, they could only point to the scattered wreckage of alien ships and the testimony of terrified survivors. The fleet that had gone against Earth had indeed never come back because they had encountered something the universe had never seen before. Humanity had proven that consciousness and determination could triumph over any technology, and that the human spirit could not be conquered by any force in the galaxy.